Hey everyone, my name is Zach. I'm a 22-year-old competitive boulderer from Canada, currently living near Frankfurt, Germany. Welcome back to the COMPCLIMB training series, where I record all of my training, provide in-depth analysis of every session, and just chat about climbing with an emphasis on competition. So, I'm really tired. Do I look tired? I'm really tired. Yesterday, we did the competition at Boulder Olymp. It was a fun event, and it was just like your normal scramble qualifier and then ISO format finals, which usually I can handle. But the schedule of yesterday was honestly what was really tiring. We had to get up early because so the gym was like 2 hours from where we live by car, and actually we were like super fortunate enough to have a couple setters from Studio Bloc reach out and offer Maddie and I a ride to the event. So shout out to Chiara and Tabita for the ride. They were like lifesavers. That was so helpful. Otherwise we would have needed to get a hotel room for like probably 2 nights and like some train rides. That would have been terrible. So we could turn that whole sort of weekend trip into just a couple like 2 hour car rides, 2 2-hour car rides, which was nice. But what ended up happening was it just was like a really long day because of that. We had to get up early, and then like after finals finished, we got a ride back home, and it was a couple hours, and we didn't end up going to bed till like 1:30 a.m. or something. So I was really feeling the the adrenaline of just doing the competition and trying really hard, plus the very little sleep and just being awake for a long period of time. I was feeling that today, and it was hard. I actually felt so I was tired from all this, but it's actually been a fun sort of thing I'm realizing now that I'm doing like more comps again. Obviously in the past like year I haven't been doing, like last year I wasn't doing a lot of comps just because, I don't know, it didn't really work. There weren't a lot, and I wasn't like as psyched on competing as I am now. But something I'm sort of realizing and learning as I'm doing more comps, like sort of back to back to back. First, I'll just pause and say we're at Studio Bloc Mannheim for like our boulder session. That's session 1 of today, and we're revisiting this boulder. I just tried it briefly a little bit to sort of check in, see if I'd made any sort of mental progress since we tried this boulder last time, like a month ago. I wasn't quite vibing with this boulder today, so I just gave it a few tries and then moved on because there were like lots of new boulders since we were here last time. So I started trying this boulder, which ended up being really cool and really hard. Yeah, something I'm realizing as I'm like doing more comps back to back is sort of this like sort of magical thing, actually. It's very interesting that I've kind of forgotten about as I haven't been doing as many comps like a couple years ago, and sort of like forgetting about this, is that especially if you end up like doing well at competitions, or you're like sort of feel like you're performing well, and like you almost like feel like you're in shape. When you do a competition, especially if you do like a final round where you have to go into ISO and you're like really like working your brain at its maximum capabilities for like beta, sequencing and whatnot, because like obviously in a competition, like your mind just like solely focuses on the round, at the task at hand, which is the round of bouldering, and your whole being is sort of set on figuring out these boulders, and you're just really activating all these sort of like comp climbing pathways in your mind, like they're firing at 110% during a competition round. And that's like, your body also like produces adrenaline so that your muscles can exert like that. And your brain does the same thing. It tries and activates all of its brain power for the final round. And so, what that actually does, and what I'm realizing since I've done like jackalope, and then I did, the E4 competition, and then now this competition, is this effect in your brain lingers for like a few days. And it's actually really fascinating. I find when I have like a comp that goes really well, it doesn't even need to go well. Let's say I make finals, and I'm sort of thinking about competing all day, and my brain's working really hard, and I'm just like trying as hard as I can with my brain to figure out boulders, and like my body is like feeling good. This effect lingers, and your brain almost like continues its sort of like, so the sort of self-to mindset that I've been talking about a lot. And then I after the E4 video, I linked the video where I really talked about the self one. I'll link it again in the description of this video. It's sort of a head game metaphor that I talked about in a video a while ago. I like went really in depth about it, and it's one of my favorite metaphors for like head game and sort of like a mental tactic you can use for competing and even just climbing. It's the self 1 and self 2 head game. So I'm gonna go check the video. I'll link it in the description. But the self 2 from this metaphor is like your unconscious self. So it's like your body. your sort of like your body's instincts basically on how it knows how to climb. Because often a lot of times the things you do on the wall, you're not actually thinking about, your body's just doing it for you. So when you compete, your self too is working super hard, and it's really like sort of breaking out of its shell and just like, I'm here, I'm self too, I'm ready to go, I'm ready to activate. And so when you bring it out like that for a competition, it will stay out, and it will like just sort of like take a while to sort of go back into its shell again. And it's really cool. So I'll often find that my super strong self too will linger for a few days after a comp. And like after Jackalope, I remember we went to like some other gyms and around Toronto, and I just remember doing boulders really well because I was just like felt like I was like on form or something. And that's honestly why momentum is a real thing. Like you'll often see like people will go on hot streaks like in the World Cup or something, like, you know, what, Mejdi won the first couple World Cups or something. Also, let me pause first and say, obviously I've been trying this boulder a lot and it's super cool. It's got this really cool sequence in the middle and then with this crazy jump out to the right. So I finally like almost stick this first move, which is this really funky dyno into the roof, and it's hard not to dab. So I like kind of stick it, but I dab like pretty sizably on the mats. But I like felt like I could have held the holds anyway, so I just said, you know what, I'm gonna see if I can get like a mock send of this boulder. Just, you know, kind of, especially in training, like, yeah, I like to send boulders, but it also, like, I like to just do boulders as fast as possible so that I can move on and get like as much, as big a variety of boulders in a session as possible, just because that's how I'm going to get more value out of a boulder session, by simply doing more boulders. That being said, though, I wanted to try this boulder a few more times because like I was kind of like bothered that I dabbed. So I said I'd put a few more tries on it to see if I could stick the dyno without dabbing. And I think this next attempt, is this the attempt? Let's see. Yes, it is. Yes, I died on this attempt. I was ready to just not let go at all. I was going to try super hard on that attempt, and I held on for too long, and my hand fired off with the right hand, and it felt like a knife, just shredded all my skin. My skin was like a little bit pink after the comp yesterday. This right hand is super pink now, and I am like really bummed. It's like still kind of stinging. Thankfully, our campus session for session 2, we did on the wood board here at Mannheim, and it was like, that was definitely very necessary on the skin. But yeah, that I couldn't do that dyno without dabbing, so I just said, you know what, I'll take my mock send and move on to some other boulders. That being said, I only had like a short boulder session on the program for today because we're doing a 3-day chunk, just because I had to rearrange my training a bit to fit in the local event yesterday. So we did like sort of a 1 day on 1 day off on our training day, like our last training day before the comp. But now that means we have to do a 3-day on 1 day off, just because, like, you know, instead of doing 2 on 1 off and then another 2 on 1 off, I'm basically taking one from this and putting onto here. So now it's 1 on 1 off and 3 on 1 off. And I hate doing 3 days in a row. I'm so used to like having that sweet relief of like, oh yes, rest day after like finishing day 2. And now I finished day 2 and I don't have that juicy rest day tomorrow, which is very sad. But yeah, we have to just do it because that's what the program says. But anyway, yeah, like momentum is a real thing, and it's because your brain will just like start firing really well after doing like a comp, like especially like a comp where you find a lot of success in, and you're just like sort of like using your mind really well, and it like you performed really well. That will linger throughout like even the rest of the week. You'll find that your boulder sessions will be better, and especially if you do like a comp like in the subsequent weekend, like that's why momentum is a real thing, and that's why, you know, people will win, like go on a hot streak and win World Cup, like a couple World Cups in a row. Okay, here, look at this shoe. This is gonna remind me of my tip of the day for today. It's kind of a weird one, but let me just finish this thought. So yeah, like momentum is a real thing, and I've found like firsthand, it's sort of just because that, yeah, like yourself too will like, you know, break out of its shell and it will stay around for a while. And then if you do another comp, it's going to like even still stay up for a while even more. So that's just, I don't know, there's not necessarily anything to really take away from this or like, you know, anything to learn. I think it's just sort of an interesting fact in it. And I think it gives some insight into why, you know, you'll see competitors do so well back-to-back, like competition, like back-to-back-to-back. And it's not just because they're getting lucky or something. It's because like, it's sort of like a neurological thing. Like your brain is just more likely to do better after it has just done better, because it just is easier for it to remember what it just did, if that makes any sense. Anyway, I thought it was just fun to sort of talk about that, because like I've been feeling that even just after some local events I've been doing well in, I find that my movement skills are like nice and firing, and like I can perform really well. That being said, though, today I was just a bit tired, so it was like weird. Like I felt like I kind of was feeling like my body knew how to climb really well today, but I just didn't have the gas or the energy to. So yeah, but it was interesting that in previous like after Jackalope, I was actually having some really cool sessions, and after E4, it was the same sort of thing. But yeah, the tip of the day that I want to talk about today is kind of weird. It's kind of abstract. I found that I wasn't really like, we only did sort of 3 boulders in this session, so there was no sort of groundbreaking movement skills that I was like thinking about, or anything that I haven't already talked about. So I was thinking about something new for today, and I think there was actually something that was really on my mind during this session. Obviously, I'm falling all over the slab, right? And it's definitely a hard slab. It's like this foot that I have to start on with the start volume is really bad, as you can see by what just happened. That was my last try of the day. I was getting really frustrated on this boulder, and the start position was hard. And what was making it extra hard was my shoe, which I showed like a little close up of. I've been like starting to get a hole, and like I've just had these shoes for a while. Like ever since I've been wearing the Instincts, this is still the first pair that I've been wearing. And I'm kind of in a terrible situation too, where these shoes that I'm wearing right now are super, super old, but then I have a new pair of shoes, that like a brand new ones that I like have worn one day, and I have a comp like in a week. But my feet hurt so much because I was wearing my slip-on shoes for most of the competition yesterday, actually during qualifiers, just because like my Instinct VSRs, like the Velcros, are just like too old. So I was trying to do a lot of the climbs in my slip-on shoes, but the slip-on shoes are so tight, and it's just because the nature of a slip-on shoe is it needs to be really tight in order to hug your foot without a Velcro strap. And so if I wear them for too long, my feet are really, really sore. And I actually kind of screwed up. I shouldn't have been wearing them so much yesterday, because now my feet hurt so much that I can't break in my new shoes. And I don't know if I'm gonna be able to break them in time for the competition on the weekend. And at the same time, I can't compete in these old ones because they're too old. So I'm like in a terrible spot where I have shoes that are too new that I can't break in because my feet hurt, and I have shoes that are too old, and any sort of small footholds I'm not going to be able to do well on. So it kind of sucks. And then I'll also just mention we're doing our session 2 of campusing at Studio Bloc Mannheim. I've never been on this wood board here. In fact, like this is just my second time on a wood board in general. The only other time was that time we did our campusing at Studio Bloc Darmstadt on their wood board. This wood board, though, is like way nicer than the Darmstadt one. The Darmstadt one's okay, but this one's actually really cool. The holds here are really nice and comfortable, and I was actually having like a fun campus session. But yeah, so this tip of the day is not a movement or like a climbing skill that you can put into practice. It is sort of like not a head game tip, but something that you should be aware of. And for just your sort of climbing abilities and climbing state. So sometimes over the years, you know, I'll go in and out of like slab form, right? I'll be feeling like, okay, I'm going through like a phase where I feel like really good on slab, or maybe I'll go through like a couple months of like a rut where I'm like, oh man, I'm just not able to do slabs right now, and I'm like not feeling good on them. But something that I've actually sort of been realizing even sort of recently, maybe in the past like half a year to a year, something that I've really been paying more attention to is that you need to be really aware of the state of your shoes when you're judging your slab ability, like your slab climbing ability. And so my tip of the day today is something that is just like advice on how you should feel about yourself, I guess. So it sounds like a pretty simple concept, but it's actually like easy to overlook sometimes. It's just like your shoe, sort of like the stage that your shoe is in, like during its sort of like life cycle, is really critical in order for you to like sort of like judge your slab climbing ability. At the end of your shoe's life, it's going to be really soft, and it's going to be sort of like, you know, more optimal for it to be smearing on volumes, or you know, maybe using this sort of full foot position that I like to talk about, and not so great for standing on little footholds. And vice versa. Like if your shoe's like sort of brand new, it's nice and stiff, it's got a nice like sharp like edgy edge, it's going to be great for standing on little footholds, but not so great for smearing on volumes. And so you even like, and the tricky part is when your shoes are like sort of going through the transitions. So like it's obviously when you have new shoes, it's like very obvious. It's like, okay, I'm not going to be good at smearing on volumes right now, but I'm going to be able to edge like it's nobody's business, right? But like as you start to like wear your shoe and it like starts to get like a month old or something, and you sort of like forget about it's the stage that it's in, it's very easy to sort of like accidentally let yourself believe that you're not good at standing on volume, or sorry, that you're not like good at like edging on small footholds because your feet are slipping and you don't feel secure, even though your shoe's actually reaching the end of its life and you are sort of forgetting about it, and it's like becoming softer, or the edge is being worn down, and you're not the shoe is not primed to do what you're trying to make it do. And this is something that I am really been paying attention to. So basically, I was falling all over that foothold on the start of the slab, but I wasn't sort of like, I was making sure that I didn't conflate that feeling of like stress that I'm not able to start this on this foothold with like, I'm bad at this climb and I'm really bad at standing on bad footholds. Maybe I could be better at it, but the state that my shoe was in, like it was just starting to get a hole like that. It wasn't quite a hole, but obviously you see it's sort of missing a layer of rubber. This shoe is not designed to be standing on a little foothold like that. Like I would need to try this boulder again with shoes that are like in super like comp ready shape in order to make an accurate judgment of sort of my ability on this boulder. And it can go the other way as well. It's like, make sure you're not judging your volume smearing ability after you've been wearing a new pair of shoes for like a week. And so this is just like super important because, you know, half of climbing is mental. And if you start to let yourself believe that you're really bad at something, then all of a sudden you're going to have less confidence in a certain sort of climbing move, whether that be edging or smearing. And it's going to, now that's going to start making a physical impact on you because your mentality has been impacted. So if you have less confidence on like your edging ability because you thought you were bad at like edging on holds when your shoe was just getting too soft and it was at the end of its lifetime, now you're actually going to start to get worse at edging. So basically the moral of the story is you really just have to, before you judge your sort of footwork abilities, really pay attention to the state of your shoes and the state that your shoes are in. And so that's what I was doing today. I was like I was trying to send that boulder and I was like trying really hard and I tried it a lot and I was getting frustrated because I wasn't sending it. But what I was really making sure that I was doing was I wasn't getting frustrated at my ability, because that, you know, just the nature of like training and being a competitive climber, that's what we do all the time. We're constantly judging ourselves and constantly, you know, feeling insecure, feeling stressed about our climbing abilities. But like, especially with like footwork and like, you know, being able to like smear on volumes or stand on feet, you got to take your shoe state into account, which I was doing today. So I wasn't actually frustrated at myself. I was just frustrated that my shoes were not like in any condition to stand on that foothold. And yeah, I was trying to make the most of it. I was like trying to stand like, with like a different part of my shoe on the foothold, but no, yeah, didn't happen. So anyway, we finished the training day. I had a pretty fun session campusing on the wood board. And yeah, that campus session was like quite like I had to grind that session out. I was definitely starting to feel fatigue and just like the sleepiness, like the 1:30 a.m. bedtime last night was not like, I was definitely starting to feel it. And I wanted to, you know, call my session early after it was halfway done, but I just kept like convincing myself to do one more attempt. And it's always like very satisfying when you have like a training session like that where you were able to convince yourself to do one more attempt for, you know, 30 minutes than you actually did the session you're supposed to. So I guess I'm happy that I was able to do that. But yeah, that wrapped up today's day of training. And unfortunately, we got to go to the gym again tomorrow because I have a 3-day block. I would love a rest day, but no dice. So we're going to go do our workout and endurance tomorrow. So tune in for that. Insert catchy video outro here.